So, I have a bit of a confession to make. I'm really bad at science. And this comes from someone who has a 15-year career as an academic. So that's a hard truth for me to confess. And the reason why I say I'm bad at science is I was sitting with one of my first semester PhD students one day, first semester computer science students one day, and they absolutely destroyed 15 years of my research in about 5 minutes. And this is research that shows things like the market for inclusive design products and services is worth $11 trillion worldwide. This is research that shows the cost of not complying with universal design laws and policies is actually 3 times more than simply complying. And this is also research that shows that leadership is one of the critical factors in achieving universal design. And yet, only 5% of global leaders achieve that threshold for inclusive leadership. Now, I think, I'm Anthony. I'm an academic turned entrepreneur. I'm wearing a blue suit, yellow tie. I've got black and white curly hair. I've got a Mediterranean skin tone. And I'm about 40 years old, 40 plus, but 40 years old. Yes. I mentioned this story about Randy in the beginning of this presentation because Randy gave me an opportunity not just to be a better researcher, but to be a more inclusive leader. And I think we all kind of agree, or at least most of us would agree, that inclusion is an absolutely critical part of moving society forward. And I think a lot of us would also agree that inclusive leaders are a key catalyst for making that happen. And then I think a lot of us would also feel a sense of satisfaction and purpose when we see individuals and organizations, companies thinking and acting more inclusively. And so I want for us to consider how inclusive design helps us minimize the risk of rolling out a product or service that's only available to the very select few and not available to everyone. I want us to reflect on how universal design can help us maintain engagement, not just from our customers, but from our employees, our first customers. And I want us to reflect also on how universal design can help maximize the opportunities for gaining access to that 11 trillion euro market for inclusive design products and services. Now, I know you may be thinking, Anthony, inclusive leadership sounds great, but it also sounds like a lot of work. And you're right. Inclusive leadership is a ton of effort. In fact, it's not just a tick box that you can check off and say, oh, I'm an inclusive leader, I'm done, I don't have to do anything else. It's a journey that you take and that you move forward every day of your life. And one of the ways that happens is in those small moments, those opportunities that we have every day to make choices that move you into more and more inclusive behaviors and more inclusive ways of thinking. So today, I'm going to tackle 2 of these 7 lovely wins of inclusive leadership. And we're going to use stories like the one that I mentioned earlier about Randy to kind of illustrate some of the points behind inclusive leadership. So there I am, sitting in my office chair, much like this, and Randy's sitting next to me, and we are dueling it out over this topic of universal design. Her bringing her unique perspective, me bringing my authority as a professor, my knowledge, and I see this work crumbling in front of my eyes, this 10 years worth of research just shattering as she pokes hole after hole after hole in my logic. And the only thing that snapped me out of my stupor was hearing the tram outside of my office honk at one of the pedestrians. So I snapped out of it, and I'm looking at Randy, and I'm thinking, Randy is a revolutionary. Randy is someone that's not satisfied with the status quo. Randy is someone that speaks truth to power. And in Norway, a lot of times the students will call the professors by the first name. So it kind of equalizes this relationship a little bit. And that kind of hit me even harder because she's sitting there telling me, Anthony, what you've done is wrong. What you've done is flawed. And I think, no, this is not possible. I'm a professor. I've been in university for decades. I know so much. I am an authority figure, and I'm heavily invested in that identity. And anything that feels like it encroaches on that identity feels like an attack on me and who I am. Now, I don't know if you've ever had this experience before, but if you've ever had a younger person call you out for something, it can be troubling. You can be shook from that. Has anybody had a younger person, raise your hand, if you had a younger person tell you a hard truth, tell you something that you really didn't want to hear, you really didn't want to know. Yeah, I think a lot of us can admit to that. Well, it wasn't so much that Randy was telling me something I didn't want to hear. That criticism, especially coming from a student, felt a little bit tenuous right off the bat. And it wasn't even so much, even if she was up here, if she would just criticize me. But the fact that she was criticizing me, and she was right, and I did not want to admit it. In fact, I didn't want to admit it because I wasn't sure why she was right. I knew superficially what she was saying made total sense, but I didn't get the depth to which she understood this topic, and I did not. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting there thinking, this person, I don't know if I like this person very much. I think this person is here to condemn me. She's here to take me down. And that was the dynamic that we had in those moments. And it was frustrating for me because I, as this authority figure, suddenly felt so small. Not just small, but kind of pointless. Just as pointless as if you were the owner of a car company and you decided to buy Twitter. You know who we're talking about? Yeah, that pointless. That level of pointlessness. And in that interaction, I start realizing that I'm not looking at a first semester computer science student any longer. I'm looking at Captain Marvel. So if you've seen this movie, Captain Marvel, it's all about a woman who gets superpowers, and her mentor tries to control and constrain those superpowers. He tries to own them and subvert her. And eventually she breaks free of those shackles, and she's able to stand in her own truth. So I was faced in that exact same dilemma that he was faced in that movie. I could choose to flex my authority and say, no, you don't know, you're a student, I'm a professor, I know more than you. Or I could try to set her free. I could try to empower her. Now, professors tend to do things a very specific way. And in my office, I have a whiteboard, and I have 3 markers in the tray of that whiteboard. I have a black marker for writing text, I have a blue marker for drawing figures and graphs, and I have a red marker when I want to make corrections to something. Now, as much as Randy was right, she made a fatal mistake that day, because she was drawing a figure on my whiteboard using a red marker. And I know that I said the same thing. I was like, well, obviously you don't know what you're talking about now. Clearly you just undermined your entire argument. It's the equivalent online of someone commenting in a post and then misspelling a word, and then the next commenter's like, oh, you misspelled your. Yes. So, the lesson I learned from this interaction is that I have to shut up in order to let somebody else have space, in order to let somebody else have a voice. And so what I think about when I'm working in my teams in the different areas that I get to work in is not simply, ooh, my mic is gone. The voice of God is gone. Yes, it's back. Yay! I have to shut up in order to give them space. And if I hadn't done that in this case, if I had just continued to rebut her, if I had continued to argue with her and put her in her place, not only would that have completely destroyed any chance that we would have of having a relationship, not only would that diminish her and her value and invalidate her, it wouldn't do anything for me except for stroke my own ego. It wouldn't do anything for me but then make me feel a little bit superior for 5 minutes. So the moral of that story is that we have to shut up or else the other person will shut down. So shut up so that the other person doesn't shut down. Now the second story here deals with cheese and universal design. And I know what you're thinking. How could cheese possibly relate to universal design? I don't know yet. We will find out. But cheese for me is something that I love and I have a passion for. It's something I love to cook with. It's something that I really feel existentially desireful for. And I had a very interesting experience the first time I tried to cook with Norwegian brown cheese, brunost, right? And it's because Norwegian brown cheese, it's a trickster, right? It claims to be cheese, but it has its own agenda. It has its own thing going on, and I haven't even completely understood what it is to be brown cheese, what it is to understand fully what brown cheese is. So I have a little bit of brown cheese here, and I'm going to ask my dear friend and colleague Amit to have a taste of this and to describe the flavors that he is experiencing when he tries this brown cheese.
Expecting to do this.
What's the first thing that's hitting you?
Bland.
A bit bland, okay. Maybe a little sweet.
Sweet, and it's sweetening after time.
Yeah, caramelly. Yeah, a little bit salty too.
Yeah, mixed feelings.
Mixed feelings. Yes. So, yes. So my earliest memory of trying cheese, not necessarily brown cheese, but cheese in general, was when I got to study abroad in Italy. And I think the first or second day I was there, I went to my local cheese shop, and this cheese counter was about 15 kilometers long. It was enormous, and that fragrance of cheese is just filling the air. And there's this old Italian guy behind the counter, and he's shouting at the patrons, and I slammed my face up against the counter because I just wanted to grab every piece of cheese in that case and gobble it all up. And so then he tells me, you need to leave the store. So when I first moved to Norway, I thought, ooh, this is a chance for me to try whole new cultures, culinary heritage. It's a chance for me to try something new and explore all these flavors. And I was so excited because I watched this television program in the US called New Scandinavian Cooking, who starred as a Norwegian chef by the name of Andreas Wierstad. And he would go all around Norway, and he would be there cooking in the middle of the wilderness. And whether it was snowing or raining or beautiful sunny day, he's sitting there cooking, pulling out all these local ingredients, making these beautiful dishes. And so I was like, I am going to thrive in Norway. This food is going to be a whole new journey for me as an amateur cook and as somebody who really, really enjoys to eat. So I moved to Oslo, and I'm super excited about the chance to get to explore this culinary heritage in a new country. And my brother-in-law tells me, hey, I want to come visit. I want to come visit the first week you get there. I want to help you explore these tastes and these traditions. And he's a chef. So I was like, yes, this is a chance for me to show off my new home. It's a chance for me to show off my cooking ability. So he comes over, and I say, hold tight here. I'm going to run to the grocery store real quick. I pop into my local Kiwi. Right, Kiwi is a small grocery store chain here in Norway, and in Oslo they're exceptionally small. And I approached the cheese counter, which was about 1 meter across. And I'm looking down at the cheese, and I'm seeing 3 options. I'm seeing Hvitost, white cheese. I'm seeing gulost, yellow cheese, and brunost, brown cheese. And I'd say, okay, well, Hvitost I know. Hvitost is all about the, Hvitost is just kind of generic plain white cheese. Gulas, I know, yep, yellow cheese, got it, had it, know how that tastes. But Brunost, ooh, this is exotic. This is local. This is something unique to Norway. This is a chance to show off that flavor of Norway. So I buy up a whole bunch of Brunost. I take it home. My brother-in-law is sitting at the table over there. I'm in front of the kitchen hob, the stove. I pull out my frying pan like an expert, pop it on top of the hob. It's heating up. I get some butter. I got the Brunost sitting right there on the counter. Slices of it just ready. Get some butter, pop the butter in the pan. Sizzles, crackles, pops. I get a couple of eggs out of the refrigerator, put them in a bowl, scramble them up. The Brunost is just sitting there, looking all caramelly and delicious. And I scramble up those eggs, I pop them in the pan, they bubble and curdle, and the whole edges of the eggs start to crisp up, and then I take that Brunost slice after slice, boom, into those eggs, boom, into those eggs. One last slice, oh, yes, flip that omelet, flip it over on its side, and I bring it out with the pride of like Lion King pride, right? Like holding up Simba to see all the domains, and I'm holding up that pan with that omelet in, and I march over to my brother-in-law and I say, you're about to taste something that you've never tasted before. It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna open up new ways of thinking about food. And I slide it off onto his plate, and he picks up his fork, takes that first bite, and all that joy and excitement turns to this sheer and utter horror, of expression. And I say, what's wrong? What happened? And he said, well, this isn't exactly the flavor profile that I was expecting. I said, okay, let me try it. So I try it, and oh my goodness, that was a mistake. That was a massive mistake. So we quickly Google, and we say, okay, Brunost is supposed to be used on waffles. Okay, well, let's try that. So we make up a whole batch of waffles. We throw the Brunost on top. Ooh, divine, delicious. That's the way Brunost is meant to be used. And it was in that moment that it kind of clicked for me that Brunost is exactly like universal design. Because in universal design, we say that it's one size fits one, not one size fits all. Brunost is a one-size-fits-one kind of cheese. It doesn't go everywhere. It goes on waffles, maybe on a cracker, yeah. But that's pretty much, it's limited to those applications. It's one-size-fits-one. Witost is one-size-fits-all. You can throw it on just about anything. It's not going to necessarily make it amazing, but it's going to be fine, right? So when we approach universal design, I want us to think about one-size-fits-one. We should be making companies, we should be making products and services that are one size fits one, not like Witost, one size fits all. Make the Brunost of the world. Now, Brunost is also like universal design in one other respect. Now, I'm an immigrant. I came here from the United States. And like a lot of immigrants, home has a flavor profile. Home, for me, those memories of eating as a child with my grandparents, that's what's locked into my brain. So I often crave those flavors living here in Norway, but I never always have access to the exact same kind of food. And I think for a lot of Norwegians, that's what Brunost is for them. When they go abroad, when they travel, they feel that connection to home by having something that reminds them of home, by having Brunost. So Brunost is, in my opinion, necessary for a lot of Norwegians to feel connected to their home. But it's good, in fact, it's awesome for everyone. So necessary for some and awesome for everyone. And that's the way universal design should be as well. Universal design, when we universally design a product or service, it's necessary to design it in a way that, for example, a person with a disability can use it, but it ends up being awesome. It ends up working really, really well for everyone. So Brunost is like universal design in two different ways. Number one, it is necessary for some and good for everyone. It's one size fits one, not one size fits all. I want us to continue to remember this. So those are the two lovely wins of inclusive leadership, 2 of the 7 lovely wins of inclusive leadership. Number 1, we have to shut up or they will shut down. To shut up so that they don't shut down. Number 2 is design like Bruno's. One size fits one, not one size fits all. Necessary for some and awesome for everyone. I want to wrap up with that story of Randy because it had a really beautiful ending. Randy and I continued to work for years and years and years afterwards. We collaborated on a research project that was exactly designed after her ideas of what universal design should be. So we collected that data. We submitted our paper to Cambridge University for a conference there, and we were elated when it was accepted to that conference. So we went there, and we found out that there was going to be a prize for the top paper at that conference. And we assumed that it was going to go to one of those people who'd been working in this field for decades and decades and decades, who was prominent, who we knew the name of because they were so famous in our field. And I get on the plane to go back to Oslo, and I had to leave the conference a bit early. And I get a phone call from Randy, and I pick up the phone and I say, "Hey Randy, what's up, everything okay?" She said, "Anthony, we won top paper. We won the best paper from Cambridge University at this conference." And my mind blew. And I said, wow, this is an opportunity for us to create a new field of research. This is an opportunity for us to create a new way of thinking about universal design. And we get back, a few days later, I get a letter in the mail from the conference organizers thanking us and telling us how important our work was for this field. And then we get called a couple days later from a journalist who says, "We want to cover your story of the collaboration with you and Randy and the paper and the award that you won." And it feels so exciting and so good for me to be able to tell you the story because that lesson, the lesson I learned in that moment when I first met Randy, the shut up or they will shut down, has been able to empower me, not just empower her, but empower me as a leader. And that was the start of my journey as a more inclusive leader. I want to end by teaching you a little trick to help you become more inclusive leaders. But I want us to make an agreement, a promise to each other, that when we finish today, we will go back and we will work with our teams, but we will teach them the sign language gesture for shut up. Okay? The sign language gesture for shut up is very simple. Open hand in front of your face. Everybody do it with me. Open hand in front of your face. And you're going to close your palm and put your hand towards your mouth, just like this. Yeah? Let's do it all together again. Boom. Yes, exactly like that. So promise me you will teach your teams and your boss this gesture so that the next time you're in a meeting and you're like me, blabbing on and on and on and on, and I look around and I see all my team looking at me like this, I know it's time to shut up and create space for someone else, to decenter myself and recenter on someone else. I'm going to leave you now with a question. What can you do in the future to take yourself out of the limelight and put that limelight, that spotlight on someone else? And one way we can do that is how? To get it done. I'll take that as my cue.